We're going to start this video right on the lab and go ahead and just talk about the EIGRP RID for a moment. And then we're going to do a little bit of lab work with it. Now you can see the RID in the output of show IP EIGRP topology, the local routers RID, and right there it's 11.11.11.11. And the OSPF and EIGRP rules for arriving at the RID are exactly the same. The command's a little bit different, of course, if you're hard coding it, because you know EIGRP, it's a bit of an egomaniac and it just has to have its name in every command. But as far as the loopback and the physical interfaces, the rules are the same. We're going to use the highest IP address on a loopback first, regardless of whether or not that loopback is actually enabled with that protocol. In this case, it is not. I am not advertising the 11.11.11.11 IP address with EIGRP, but it is still serving as the EIGRP RID. Secondly, if we didn't have any loopbacks, the highest IP address on a physical interface will be used, again, even if that physical interface is not running EIGRP. We can also hard code this with the router ID command. Now let's go over to router 3. We have an adjacency with that one, and it should be 3333, and you can see right there that it is. We know that we had a problem with the adjacency in OSPF if we had router IDs the same between neighbors. So you know what we're going to do here. We're going to make it the same RID on router 1 as we have on router 3 and see what happens. So let's go ahead and do that thing. Router EIGRP 100, router ID 3333. And we get invalid input, the caret. I do love this feature because it shows you where you went wrong. But where you went wrong, when you go wrong this close to the beginning of the command, that's usually pretty bad. You do have to do the whole EIGRP thing here with this command, even though you are in the EIGRP config. Because we use iOS help, you're not going to see anything here about a router ID, where in OSPF you just go router ID 3333 and you're good. What you need are the EIGRP specific commands, even though you're already in EIGRP protocol configuration mode. EIGRP, man, it's a diva. There you go, router ID. And then you just set it in dotted decimal. And that's it. You know, you notice we didn't get a mention about do you want to restart EIGRP or anything like that, like we did with OSPF, and we're not required to do a restart either. So what is going to happen is what just happened. You're going to lose your adjacencies, and there is no option. You're not going to be asked if you want to tear down your EIGRP configuration, or your adjacencies, I should say, because it's going to be torn down for you just a few seconds after you do this. Now, this did not happen because of any match with the EIGRP RIDs, because right now, we'll verify in a second, but right now it looks like routers 1 and 3 are using the same value for their EIGRP RID. That's not why this came down, because we'll turn it back to 11.11.11.11 in a few minutes, and you'll see the exact same thing happen. Your adjacencies are going to go down, and they should come right back up. Dot 2 was kind of dragging there, but it is done. So let's run show IP EIGRP top. We don't have all our routes for that one yet, but we don't care. Router 2 will have that to us in a second. And you can see right here, here's the ID 3333. So we have the same router ID as router 3. Do we still have our adjacency? It sure looked like we did. Sure, it did reform. As a matter of fact, we have 2 of them because we still have that serial link up from the bandwidth lab. You know, they did go down, but we know that's going to happen regardless of whether there's a match or not. It didn't go down because of the match. So it looks like that would be fine. And you know, in many scenarios, it would be okay. But one reason you don't want to do this, it does interfere in some scenarios with route redistribution into EIGRP. Now, route redistribution, unfortunately, because I love teaching, it's not part of the CCNA, but we've looked at a little bit of it here and there. So it's just, you know, just because you can do something, it doesn't mean you should do it. I do want you to know for your exams that OSPF RIDs, you know, cannot match between neighbors. We know what happens there. The adjacency is lost. But here we've also seen that EIGRP neighbors don't care. I'm just telling you that in the future it can lead to trouble, and I personally would avoid using the same RID on multiple EIGRP speakers. So let's say we want to change it back to the all 11s. And let's see what happens when we do. We'll just go ahead and hard code that. EIGRP router ID. And let's see if our adjacencies go down just like they did before. I believe in a couple of seconds they'll do just that. And there they go. And they're going to come right back out. Like I said, .2 is dragging for some reason. But you can see it just says route configuration changed. But all it is you just change the router ID. And that is going to happen every time you do that in EIGRP. It's going to tear your adjacencies down. So that is definitely something worth knowing. But again, just going over quickly the rules here, the OSPF and the EIGRP RIDs, because I know they're going to pop up on your exam. They're determined in exactly the same way. They're determined first by the highest IP address on a loopback, then highest IP address on a physical interface. Doesn't matter whether they're actually running the protocol or not. And we also have the option to hard code it in OSPF with the router ID command and in EIGRP with the EIGRP router ID command. We also know in OSPF that we are going to be asked if we want to reset the process or reload the router, and with EIGRP we're not going to be asked squat. It's just going to go ahead and tear the adjacencies down and they should come right back up. That is it for this EIGRP lab and just about it for the section. I've got one quick video to wrap up and then we'll move on to another subject. I'll see you on the next and last video in EIGRP.